president's private business ventures and their public responsibilities start to overlap. Today, we're going to break down two really different reports that look into that very thing. And it all comes down to a single, pretty powerful rule written right into the U.S. Constitution.
Let's just start with a number that, honestly, is pretty jaw-dropping. $1.4 billion. It's a massive figure. But what is it, and where did it even come from? Well, according to a report from Unilad, which cited a review by the New York Times, this was the alleged amount Donald Trump's businesses raked in during his second term. And, get this, the report also made a point to say this number was probably an underestimate, since some profits might never see the light of day. Okay, but this isn't just about a huge number on a screen. This is about a fundamental question of ethics and law. And to really get why it's so controversial, we need to go back, way back, to the foundation of the U.S. government itself. It all boils down to this one simple question. Can a U.S. president actually take money from other countries? Well, the founders of the nation had a really strong opinion on that, and they baked their answer right into the Constitution. It's called the Foreign Emoluments Clause. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know. Emolument is just an old-fashioned word for profit or payment. And the whole point was to stop America's new leaders from being corrupted. See, the founders knew that kings and princes in Europe loved to use fancy gifts and payments to get what they wanted from foreign officials. So this clause was basically their firewall, designed to make sure an official's loyalty was to the American people, period. The only way around it? Congress has to say it's okay. And this very clause, believe it or not, was at the center of a major investigation during Trump's first term. A 2024 report from the Democratic staff of the House Oversight Committee took a deep dive into specific payments from foreign governments, giving us a totally different kind of data from that media report we started with. So the committee's whole strategy was just to follow the money. We're not talking about estimates here. We're talking about looking at hard documents. They zeroed in on payments from foreign governments that went directly into the president's privately owned businesses. Now, they said themselves that they were working with an incomplete set of documents from Trump's accounting firm. But even with that, investigators found at least $7.8 million in payments. And that money came from 20 different countries in just a 2-year span of his presidency. And here's where it gets really specific. All of that documented money went to just 4 of Trump's more than 500 businesses. We're talking about his hotels and towers in places like Washington, D.C. and New York. This gives us a super detailed look at exactly who was spending what and where. As you can see pretty clearly, China was the #1 spender in the records they managed to get, accounting for over $5.5 million of that total. This wasn't just random spending either. The money came from places like the Chinese embassy and state-owned companies, like a big bank that was a tenant in Trump Tower. And this is a perfect example of the potential conflicts the report was flagging. So on one hand, you have a state-owned Chinese bank paying rent to the president's company. On the other hand, the Trump administration decides not to sanction that same bank, even after the Department of Justice had claimed it helped North Korea get around U.S. sanctions. The report lays out a similar kind of situation with Saudi Arabia. At the same time, the Saudi government was spending over $600,000 at Trump properties. President Trump was making some huge foreign policy moves, like signing a massive arms deal and publicly questioning U.S. intelligence about the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. All right, so that's the picture from the first term, based on a congressional report digging through financial records. But the 2026 Unilad report suggests that during a second term, the business activities got way bigger and way more diverse, moving beyond just foreign government spending at hotels to all sorts of other ventures. So how do you get to that $1.4 billion number? Well, according to that report, it's a wild mix of sources. The biggest piece of the pie was supposedly a massive $802 million from crypto. Then there's a $40 million deal with Amazon for a documentary about Melania Trump. And on top of that, tens of millions more from his golf clubs, licensing his name overseas, and even a big legal settlement. So let's just take a breath and look at what we have here. You've got two very different stories. One is a detailed congressional investigation of foreign payments during a first term. The other is a media report on much bigger, broader earnings during a second term. But whether you're looking at a congressional report that's poring over receipts or a media investigation adding up massive deals, they both point to the same fundamental issue, that messy, blurry line between a president's private business interests and their public duty. It's this inherent conflict between making a profit and serving the country. And that just brings us right back to the question the framers of the Constitution tried to answer centuries ago, a question that feels more important now than ever. Where exactly is that line between public service and personal profit? And how can we be sure a president's decisions are only driven by what's best for the country? That's really the challenge at the heart of this whole debate.